He is a villager and his grandfather is a drug lord. The family's motto is family is the most important way to make a fortune. He didn't know about this meaning at all. He just lived in a house with a yard and has no hobby. He only likes to gamble in the towns, casinos, and always lose. A sunny day, he stepped out of the house and looked up the sky.
What a beautiful day. It's a really good day to plant the fields.
He thought, but inevitably had a dissatisfaction in mind. The former neighbors have settled in the city. An old friend from the block also drove a fancy car.
One day I will show off when I'm rich.
He thought, his yard is filled with fruits and vegetables, and only one of the parts is a vacant lot. He self-talk.
It is all stone, so has not been used. Today it is better to roll it.
He said then began to work, but the soil is very earthy. He thought it is not normal. He dig hard and deep, and suddenly hit something hard. He turned to look at it, only to see a jar exposed in the earth, open with a lot of white powder. He thought it should be a relic of Grandpa's generation.
Or it is ashes. It's all worthless stuff. Even if it has something that very one penny, it must have been sold by his father. The debt is a cushion before his not being paid.
He kicked a jar hardly.
He is already heavily in debt because of gambling. Recently thought about a central house to sold. This matter is to paint D to do intermediator. Today, D will come to C. D took the C to E's house. C is a member of local drug trafficking collection. On the way, they talked about the history of E's family. From the beginning of E's parents strictly forbade the families to mention the previous generation. So lead to the grandchild E actually did not know their own family history.
That's stupidity witnessed the decline of such a great family.
Pity. We are the witness. He is poor like a mouse in couch, owing too much debt, don't even have to hurt him. A little bargain will take away the house. He didn't know that he had to come his house from the beginning. It's really funny.
D and C come to E's house.
R.C., you come so quickly. Welcome.
Oh, E, I brought you a man. This bro is very interesting about your house.
C looked around of the broken house, and then said distinctly,
Just this house. How much do you intend to sell?
I want not much. Anyway, I am a person who is useless. You see, this 3,000 is enough.
3,000. Let me change my mind. Why not you going to give me 3,000 for decorating such a garbage?
E suddenly found the jar.
What is it in the debt?
It's a broken jar that just been dug up. Only the jar is worth a little.
C and D glanced at each other. C thought of his family's motto, thinking in mind that it would be the thing left on his grandfather. They secretly snapped out their joy.
What's in that place? Did you open it?
It's a powder like the broken ashes. Maybe someone buried in the hair.
Let me see, bro.
The sound hadn't dropped. She had gone through a step to open, removed the earth from the surface, and opened the jar. Only thick white powder was found in the inside. She sniffed that it might be drugs. For the East family's motto, most people believe of it as a hint of what their ancestors left behind. Even because of this, his family has been stolen several times, but E has not been taken seriously. It's been a poor situation since he was a child. The values was all taken away by the fathers to gamble.
Brother, it is really unlucky for this dog to stay at home. Think about how to deal with it.
In this way, I will add 1,000 for 3,000, and you can leave the jar for me, okay?
It's million because I don't know what it is. Let me think about it for 2 days.
C and D. Two people laughed bitterly.
Boss, I found a treasure. E. This guy probably can't save what his ancestor left. Why don't we cheat him and get it?
Yeah. Happen to you want to buy his house? Let's arrange a meeting.
There was such a famous saying in ancient time: killing two birds with one stone. The mantis catch the cicada and the yellow finch is behind. Why don't we take advantage of Abby's carelessness to kill them when we meet? How about our brothers sharing the good equally?
I mean it.
At the same time, after C left, A took off a small book hidden in the jar, found a red mark in the Dean's telephone numbers, and carefully dialed the number with a landline. Dean. After ringing for a long time, a hoarse voice came from the opposite side.
Hey, if you have something, say it. If you have nothing, get out.
Hearing the words, there was no politeness at all. Boss A had green rings on his face, but he forcibly suppressed his anger.
This is A. Please call B.
There was a silence across the room. Then he said,
I'm B. What can I do for you?
Hearing that the person opposite was the one he was looking for, A couldn't help feeling a little nervous. Even his voice became hoarse unconsciously.
There is a business tomorrow. I need you to accompany me and help me to kill several people. What's the price?
Hearing A's undisguised words, the person opposite was obviously stunned, but soon recovered his calm and said,
200,000 for one, 500,000 for two, and 1,000,000 for three.
Hearing the offer from opposite side, A thought about the current situation and couldn't afford the price of 1 million.
If I hadn't found several recent lines by the police, why do it myself?
Thinking of this, An angrily threw down his chair, but immediately saw that if he could get all the drug into his hand, then the profit won't be comparable to 1 million. Thinking of this, gritted his teeth, picked up the phone and said,
The price is reasonable, but I ask for payment afterwards. I believe you can understand it.
No problem. Tell me the day before work.
Unexpectedly, B resorted agreed. Without waiting for a second to say anything, he hung up the phone directly. After hanging up the phone, A is also lost in thought. Now his greed is so depressed and fellows always want to ban him to take over his drug industry. As the boss, how can he know that he's just trapped in sufficient manpower and other reasons? So can't hand on C. Now this giant of drug just solved his urgent need.
Just take this opportunity to make a lot of money and get rid of the trouble around me.
At the same time, C and D, who want to take the drug alone, are also secretly planning.
No. We can't wait until the day to go with the boss. We have to start first.
With that, C handed D a pistol and said,
Tonight, you go to the farmer's house and steal the can from the jars. We will kill the E in E's house tonight. So our plan will be perfect.
D was a little reluctant to hear about the plan, but when C promised to give
支付
D
宝
more
到
money
账
afterwards,
250
he finally agreed
元。
and went to E's home at night. In the middle of night, the moon was hanging in the sky. He came to E's door and fought when he saw the house.
If this countryman knew he had hundreds of millions of drugs, will he join up?
Think of this, he smiled. He didn't use much effort to unlock the door and quietly entered E's house.
Well, it's all my money, you know. It's all my money. I take it out of my land.
After this time, he was digging countless gold from the ground of his old house, and he changed himself into a dream of a wealthy businessman. But the muttering was listened by Dee, who, standing by his bed, sounded like another meaning.
It seems that this John of John is mostly true.
His face showed an excited smile, but then he looked at Eve, who was sleeping.
It seems that this man already knows the truth. So, it is necessary to kill you, I'm sorry.
Thinking of this, he loaded the pistol brought from sea against Eve's forehead. The quiet night sky was mercilessly broken by gunshots, and the last member of the world-famous Yi family disappeared from the world forever. It was almost 7 o'clock when they finished cleaning up Yi's body and found the put adored by Yi in the corner, just as they wanted to escape with the pot. There was a knock at the door. He thought it was Xi, so he went to open the door. Unexpectedly, just after opening the door, a gun stoned straight against his forehead. In a dim light, it was Killer B and the boss standing at the door, looking at the person who was scared to move in front of them. The boss smiled.
It seems that you are Yi. I heard my little brother say that you have a newly dug jar of ashes. I'm very interested in it. Can you take it out and show me?
Seeing a smiling expression and B's indifferent eyes, they approached the room and took out the jar.
Good boy. Then slowly give it to me. Don't worry, as long as you do what I say, I will not hurt you.
He reluctantly put down the jar and walked out of the room under the command of the bee. When he was about to get through the door, he heard the sound of the learning bones from behind. He ran away, but it still lit. With a burst of gunfire, he fell into the pool of blood. After minutes, he walked back to the room without expression and said to the boss, who was shaking the jar in the room,
"That's $2,100.
Looking at the ruthless man in front of me, the boss smiled and said to him with the white powder in his hand,
It's okay. Come on, bro. Come and have a taste. I have never seen such a good one.
Looking at the powder in his hand, B took it and took a sip without hesitation. But he didn't feel happy in the past. Instead, he felt that the whole body was burning.
Hey you, what did you give me?"
B stared at it, but let off a cigarette and said with a smile,
What? You say what I gave you? It is kind of poison. Normally people will die if they smoke a little, but you just smoke a lot. It is meat that you still have a few seconds to live.
B looked at A's face and wanted to say something, but he fell down in the dark, looking at B's body, and gradually stopped smiling and looking at B's body coldly.
You, like the butcher who only knows how to kill. How could I give you my money? Well, this jar of drugs is all mine.
Thinking of the boss, a burst of laughter burst out again. But looking at two bodies, the boss was in a dilemma. Suddenly, his eyes swept to the stove next to him. He had a plan in his mind.
Why don't I burn these two bodies with fire?
When he had a plan, he began to act. I opened the door to burning back Dee's body outside, but as soon as he opened the door, he saw C groping on Dee, and A shouted
Hey
to
boy,
him.
what are you doing? Why don't you come in and help me?
C was spared by the cry. Just the one he thought Dee killed. He wanted to see if the poison he gave Dee was still on him, but he didn't touch anything. At this time, he was shouted by A, although C was afraid when he saw that A didn't mean to shoot him. He pretended not to know anything. He stood up and walked into the house with A. Seeing C coming with him, A took out a small bag of poison from his pocket. It turned out that in order to prevent accidents, A took a lot of poison with him when he set out. There are still a lot of such small bags on him. Seeing C coming, A turned his head and said to him,
"Oh boy, you did well this time. The purity of this batch, of course, is very high."
Then he took out the poison he had pretended and handed it to C.
"This is the reward for your performance."
Looking at the white powder handed over by A plan occurred to C. He had just seen a pistol in the corner next to him.
I will sprinkle all this powder on his face and take the opportunity to get a gun and finish him off.
Thinking like this, he held the powder, suddenly raised his hand, and sprinkled all the powder on A's face. The sudden action caught A off guard, and inhaled a lot in panic. But before his attack, C had taken the opportunity to run to the corner and raised his pistol to aim at him. He shot, fell heavily to the ground. Looking at the fallen body, C calmly stood up and thought about how to destroy the trail. Then his eyes saw the burning stove next to him. After cleaning up the things, he threw the bodies of B and D into the stove. But when he finally threw the body of A, something powdery in A's clothes leaked out and turned into smoke through the flame. They didn't care much and walked out, holding the jar. But slowly, he found that his body was getting exhausted.
I'm about to fall apart. After all this trouble,
he thought. His eyes saw the jar in his hand.
Didn't A say this thing is particularly good? Let me have a test.
With this in mind, C opened the jar, took out the powder, inhaled a mouthful of powder, but coughed heavily.
What is this? It can't be drugs.
These words rang out in C's mind, but his body couldn't hold out. As before, he knocked over the jar next to him, and the powder in it was scattered all over the ground. On his deathbed, C looked at the jar, and a line of words appeared from the bottom of the jar. My distance. If you encounter any difficulties later and see this jargon by a fluke, congratulations! You are about to get the ancient recipe of the family, which is in the lid of this issue's box. After reading this paragraph, a blackness in front of C's eyes, and spit out a mouthful of blood. He tried to open his eyes, looked at the jar in front of him, looked at the word of the issue's book, and closed his eyes. Thank you for your listening.